like to congratulate all of you for a tremendous job. When I came to Malaysia Airlines, everyone told me that the IATA that I see today is totally different from the one that was before Giovanni came in. So it's a great leader. What you guys have done here, tremendous. Congratulations. When I joined Malaysia Airlines, what I'd like to share with you is that our experience in turning around Malaysia Airlines, some of the things that I will share with you, which we call the 6 secrets of business turnaround, and how to manage a crisis. That's hopefully relevant for today. Some of them would be useful to you, and some of them will not be useful. And these are only our experiential truth. And if they're not, please throw them out. My experience in business turnaround, that means I define business turnaround as big results fast. So it's not small results slowly. It needs to be big results fast. There are 6 key principles. The first one is called the game of the impossible. P&L, profit and loss anchorage, discipline of action, situational leadership, winning coalition, and divine intervention. I will take you through the 6 secrets one by one. First, the game, the impossible. Giovanni was the first airline person other than Malaysia Airlines that I met when I joined the industry. I remember we met twice actually in the first week, and I arrived in Singapore, and he actually came to my office. That particular month when we sat down there was one comment he made, it rang in my ear. In a crisis like this, small steps do not work. I don't know whether you remembered it, but we chatted. And he said we must take the big steps. And I've always believed that in business turnaround, you cannot take small steps. The steps need to be big. And so I've always believed in this game of impossible. And to do this, you have to set really Olympics targets, targets that are big, audacious, really massive targets that they are so big, a target that you set out there, other people must tell you it cannot be done. If they tell you it can be done, it's not impossible. So you must set it to the level that everybody else say cannot be done. So what you then do is engage in a conversation with every stakeholder that matter, and the conversation will end with them saying, what you are setting out to do cannot be done. If you fail, it's okay, because it couldn't be done anyway. But if they don't end up saying that, you must construct the conversation to lead to the point when they say it actually cannot be done. And it's okay to fail. The reason why I say that's important is this. We all need to conquer the fear of failure. The reason why I believe that mankind, most people, I would say 70% or 80% of us do not achieve our full potential because we never do things that really push us to the limits. I've always said that students, probably 95% of all students in any class should graduate with an A, provided they study with the same level of intensity from the beginning of the year as do 2 weeks before the exams. That's why we don't all get an A. Now, the issue here is that the idea of doing this game of the impossible is when you set it so high, you got no choice that only big steps can make it happen. Small steps, you know, does not work. So you got to set the target so high that you got no choice but to do it. I've always believed that when you set the target so high, the better part of what we do in Malaysia Airlines is to publish it. When I joined Malaysia Airlines, we set a target that's so high, and we published it in a document that's 41 pages, and we made it available to all Malaysian public. It's on the website. So when you start to do that, the first thing that comes to mind is, my God, what have I now done? And everybody said, this cannot do it. Next slide. This is actually what was on the front page of our news site. This is the big newspaper in Malaysia Airlines. That's my picture. I look a lot younger then. And this, they said, was the mess. And they said, this is impossible to save. And considering that I came from an oil company, I've never done an airline job before, so they said, this is impossible. The controversy around why they picked me was enormous. They said, this guy is just sacrificial anode. That eventually, they said, oh, it couldn't be done anyway. This was it. We had a cash crisis. Unlike the story that Alex mentioned, we had 3 months to survive. To be precise, 3.5 months. And that was the cash. We had to fix that in 3.5 months. And it was the biggest loss in our 60-year history. It's massive losses. So that means with 3.5 months of cash, I have no time to come into the business and then sit around and learn how to do it. Because by the time I figured out how to do it, then there will be no airlines. So I had made a request that the Prime Minister come and introduce me to the town hall. So in the second day of my job, the Prime Minister introduced me to 700 Malaysia Airlines employees. It was a very big room. And he said, this is your new managing director. His name is Idris Jala. I can tell you, the government will not bail you out. This is a very important statement because everyone in the company had this feeling that if we didn't make it, don't worry, the government will bail it out. He said the government will not bail you out. The deal we had with the government was we didn't want bailout. A lot of people said if you are a government-linked company, you go and get rescue, you get money from the government to assist you, but we don't want that because all aids come with big strings. What we wanted was we don't need help, we don't need bailouts. In exchange, because you don't provide it, we then get the freedom to run the business the way we want to run it. We have the volition, we have the freedom to run the business commercially. And that was very important. And of course, you see, we didn't have a very good history. Even before I joined, we were already losing a lot of money. And so this was the big loss. And we actually, in the year 2007, we successfully made the highest profit in our 60-year history. So that was fantastic. So it was a very quick turnaround. In fact, in the first 6 months, we were actually able to make a profit. It took us 6 months of doing all the difficult things to turn it around. So the point was, the key principle was put up a target so high, it will cause you as a leader and the people with you to burn. It will consume you. The only thing that mattered in our company then, among the leaders, me and my team, was just doing this. I couldn't think of anything else that I could do that would consume me except this. And I always tell my top team that the job is not a job. It is a calling. When you reach the point of setting up big, hairy, audacious target like that, and you then publish it to everybody that you're going to do this, it ceases to become a job. It extends into the realm of a calling. Actually, it made me stretch it before. Why the government chose me to come and do this? I was working for Shell for 23 years. Prior to this, and I remember being assigned to one of Shell's division in Malaysia. The company lost money for 10 straight years. We had never made a single profit in 10 years. I remember I was working in London. The boss said, Idris, since you're Malaysian, you know a little bit, one or two, about how to turn around a company. Will you go back to Malaysia and fix this company? I remember turning up in my first day, and we had a town hall session like this, and I declared that we were going to turn around the company. One Dutchman who was an engineer in the room, he put up his hands. Idris, you'll never make $1 profit in this company. Your predecessors, 2 of the predecessors before you spoke like you, never made a single dollar profit. I would like to bet with you that you will never make $1 profit. And he said, how much is the bet? I asked him. He said, 100 ringgit, which is not much. So I took the bet. And actually, in 6 months, he lost it. So I asked him to give me the money. He gave me the money, 100 ringgit. We put it on the hallway with a note from him. If we ever went to Shell Middle Distillates in Malaysia, that 100 ringgit note is still there on the hallway. And the story around what I'm saying is that I always believe in setting out targets that are all totally impossible. And that's what we do. And the second secret is this. anchoring everything that you do on the profit and loss. I have to say that this airline is a great airline. Malaysia Airlines has always been very good. We won many awards, Best Cabin Crew Award, and many, many good things. It has nothing to do with that. The problem was we didn't anchor our work on the profit and loss. We did many excellent things, but they had no direct connection to the P&L. And I've always said, we do the key activities, the priorities in the company are those things that significantly impact the profit and loss. I am very ruthless when it comes to my priorities. The priorities of Malaysia Airlines are only those activities that significantly impact the profit and loss statement. If it does not impact the profit and loss statement, to be honest with you, it is not my priority. And that is very important. And I set up by looking at the P&L this way. Most airlines, most companies actually say that the P&L is a problem of the CEO. I have a solution to make that a problem of everyone. We decompose the profit and loss so that the profit and loss in our case become P&L for every route. And then we assign people who are responsible for every route. Then they become responsible for the routes. So it's not just my problem. So I remember when I first joined Malaysia Airlines, I asked amongst the crowd, the 700 people, who's responsible for New Zealand? There was a small guy in the corner, he put up his hand like this, and I told him, I know it's cold in Auckland, but you better start sweating because you're losing so much money. And we make people responsible, and we personalize the route P&L. Then we get the whole organization to focus on those activities that impact the P&L. To be honest with you, we quantify the activities, and we say how much is this activity going to impact the P&L. If you cannot quantify it and demonstrate it, then it's not a key business activity. We use the word KBA. Key business activity are only those activities that significantly impact the P&L. If you cannot quantify and show how it will impact the P&L, it's not a KBA. Then it's not important. Simple. The first thing you do in looking at the P&L, asking one question. When a company is losing money, the relevant question is, what is wrong with the P&L? That's where you begin. Don't ask any other question. Don't ask the question, what's wrong with the culture? Don't ask the question, what's wrong with the organization structure? The question is, what is wrong with the P&L? I can tell you what I did in Malaysia Airlines before joining. I pick up 10 years of data, all the analyst report. Every single one of financial analysts said this is the problem. And it's not 1 year, but many years before. They said we had low yield. Number two, we had an inefficient network. We flew to routes that didn't make any commercial sense. And we had low productivity. We have far too many staff. They have said it many times. We didn't control our costs. No, when they've said it, frankly speaking, you read every report, even our own internal report in Malaysia Airlines. Long before I joined, this was the perennial problem. But nobody focused on activities to sort this out. So all that I do is, I said to the guys, the only thing that we'll do is activities that deal with these problems. Let me take you through to some of the things we did. The first thing we did was looked at all the routes and said which is the one losing money and bleeding cash, not even recovering the variable cost, the direct cost. In the first 3 months, we got rid of these routes. It just said we get rid of them. We closed them. It's very difficult to close because the government felt that this was their property. They needed to bring tourists into the country, so really, really difficult to get rid of routes. But I was very clear in my mind that if the government didn't want me to do those tough measures, I was going to quit. It's very clear. I didn't apply for this job. They asked me to do it, and I said, these are the things I want to do, and if you stop me from doing it, then you can have the job back. Thank you very much. And I remember on my first EGM, we had a town hall of shareholders. The guys were really irate, and many of them were so angry because they didn't make money in this company from no dividends for a long time. So they asked the chairman, how much are we going to pay the new CEO, Mr. Jala, in terms of golden handshake? when he failed, because he's sure going to fail. So it was a very polite question. The chairman, I think, had difficulty answering it. So I said, look, excuse me, let me answer that. For the record, I don't want any money to be paid to me if I don't succeed in doing this. And if you guys say I cannot deliver the job and don't deliver the results, just give me 24-hour notice. And then why I needed 24-hour notice, at least I can tell my wife, I'm not going to work tomorrow. That's all. So no money, yeah? So people knew that I really meant it when we were out there to cut all these routes. So these are the routes we cut, and we increased our yield. In 3 years, we increased our yield by 39%. And our yield, every quarter we measured them. Every activities. We ran 4 projects to attack yield. These are the code names for them. Route Profitability Project, Revenue Enhancement Project, Omega Project. These were, in fact, there was another one that we did here. They're all the projects addressed to just attack yield. And we measure this yield every single day, yeah? Measuring the yield, how it is moving. Today, I talk about P&L. Now we've gone into a territory that is absolutely crazy. I have decided, because of the crisis that we're running today, we are doing, instead of route P&L, we've decided in Malaysia Airlines to go to the level of flight P&L. Flight P&L. We've started it, and we began it in earnest in the course of last month. Solid, I gathered everybody in one room, and we started to do this. And we have 110,000 P&Ls. That's the number. Every single flight has a P&L. So we study it, and we allocate every single fare category until the end of the year. So we have already have a plan for the flights on the 21st of December, 22nd of December. How many RBDs, how many were allocated by every point of sale. But the idea here is that when it gets tough, I always believe in life, all good things, unfortunately, come with great difficulty. Great difficulty. This is very, very difficult to do. And we've started to do this because these are very difficult times. And I realize this, and most people will tell me, Idris, don't worry. You know, if we improve the service and we improve, et cetera, then they will all do very well. I realize one thing. We have 2 flights to London from Kuala Lumpur, MH1 and MH3. One arrives at the wrong time, one arrives at the right time. Same type of crew, the same service, everything is the same. But one has a fantastic load factor, and the other one has a very poor load factor. But managing those 2 differently is key. How do you manage those 2 differently? You cannot apply the low average in difficult times. So I've said in our company, low average is out the window. Everything we do here is customized, specific to a particular route in terms of yield treatment, fare categories, et cetera, inventory. So that's what we're doing. So everybody freaked out when I decided that we were going to do 110,000 routes, and I closed my entire analysis, what we call turnaround management office, to do any other project, but we locked them in a room, solid to do this. And we did it throughout Christmas. Painful. Third, our problem was we didn't control costs. So the first thing we did was to announce we got to reduce manpower. This was very difficult to do because 3,000 people, that was the single largest manpower reduction exercise in the history of our country, let alone one company. It was very difficult. So this 15% manpower reduction, and we had to do it in 2 months. So when I announced it and we had to do it, it was a very difficult thing, not just in the company, but very difficult within the whole country. So we had to do that, and we did it. And we've been relentlessly going down the path of cutting costs. This is what we did in the first year, 665 million ringgit. And by the way, the exchange rate to the dollar is about 3.4, thereabout. And this is what we did in 2007. When I announced a target of 1 billion cost saving for last year, everybody said it couldn't possibly be done because all the low-hanging fruits have already been taken in the first 2 years. There is no way we can take a billion. This is about nearly 10% of cost. And frankly speaking, we did get it. We saved that amount of money too. And so there is one very simple lesson. in cutting costs, this is my grandfather's advice. The best way to save money is to take away the money from you. And I always believe this to be true, because we go through the budget, we just take out the money from them, from their budget, and we tell them, it's okay, we take it out. The money is now put aside here. It's with me. I behave like the Pope. If you can't work with the budget that is given to you, then you ask for forgiveness from the Pope. If I'm nice to you that day, I grant you the money. But nobody wants to see the Pope. So then they will do all the savings. So frankly speaking, you know, if you go out through a very detailed process of re-engineering costs, I've done many of this in my time, in my corporate career. I think the best way to do it is to take away the money from you. And that's what we do. And it's very effective. And it's very simple. It's straightforward. So that is about anchoring on P&L. So it means everything that focuses on the P&L is what we do. And if they don't improve the P&L, then there's not a key business activity. Then the third secret is this thing called discipline of action. There are two words there. One is called discipline. The other one is called action. It is important to step and ask the question first, how do you measure success? Because the action must relate to results. So it is important to do that. And we track not just activities, but we also track results. So if you say, this activity will impact the P&L, we want to know in which month it is going to impact the P&L. Which month is it going to enter the P&L? Don't just say, hypothetically it will, but it's never going to be there. But if you believe it, in which month? So we track in this month. So we don't just have a Gantt chart that shows these are the milestones, these are the people who will do it. We also have a Gantt chart that shows when is the money going to enter the P&L. And this is important. We also do what is called laboratories. And I don't know if you read the McKinsey report. Now we talk about labs. Lab is a fantastic tool to get the best out from people. And this is our first laboratory. We learn many labs. Labs is a very simple thing where we lock people in a room to solve business problems. There are about 10 to 15 people in a room. We stop them from doing all their normal work. They don't do their normal work. They go into a room. We tell them to fix this problem. They sit there and they stay there for 1 month. And the motto is Hotel California. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave until you sort out the problem. So that is what they do. We give them, this is a hot house, intense, full of pressure. That's what we put everybody there. Inside there, the sales people are there, the network people are there, finance people are, everybody is there to represent the various interests on that particular subject. I can tell you, time and again, these guys come with answers. In all my time in the corporate world, there's one thing I've learned. The answer is in the organization. The reason why it's not brought out was because everyone is gridlock. Someone says this is the answer, someone says, but it depends on this other department. This other department says, oh, but you have not done this, that's why I cannot do this. But if you pull them in a room and say, you stay here until you sort it out, they need to exit from that room. And for them to exit from that room, they will have to find solutions. And then they do find them. All the time. And that's what we do. And we give them very precise toolkits. Inside the room, they have computers, all the data is inside there, and they go out and experiment. Every single day, the CEO must turn up there. I turn up in every single lab. We just ran 9 laboratories to do the 110,000 P&Ls. We gathered them into our town hall sessions. We have a training center. Every room has got the various regions there. It's a crazy place. And we turn up and challenge their work until 3 o'clock in the morning. Not because I forced them to, but they want to exit that lab. That's why they want to do it. And the beauty of doing them concurrently, they can check the other regions, how they're doing. Then there's intense competition. Because the guys in Europe, when they look at the work being done in South Asia, in China. They're doing X and Y, X and Z analysis. And then when they look at it, oh, we haven't done that analysis. They come in and do it. So these are all done within our training center. So this is tremendous power in this work. When I joined Malaysia Airlines, nobody in Malaysia Airlines have heard of BlackBerry. So before I joined, I ordered 30 units. So I remember the procurement officer said, "Sir, why do you need 30? Maybe 2 is good." He thought I needed 1 as a backup. What he didn't realize is when I turned up there and I started to ask the question, who are the people in this organization that hold pivotal role in the company? All those people get a present from me, it's a BlackBerry. And the thing that we wanted was to monitor the activities and how they impact the P&L. We have 2 things that we insist on every single day. We have a daily profit and loss statement. Daily. How many people in this room know of a company that have a daily profit and loss statement? Put up your hands. Daily, every single day. Very few. I remember every company I joined when I was in Shell, I asked this, the accountants will freak out. They say it cannot be done, and if you do it, it's wrong. So I always tell them, of course, it can be done. They said, no, it cannot be done. We know how many passengers go into the aeroplane. We know how much our salaries every month is. We know our leases. The leases don't change very much. They look the same last month and this month. We know the fuel price. We can calculate it. And we know the maintenance cost on an average. They don't change very much. So when we did it, the first time we did it, so first month, second month, you track them, add it all together, and compare it into the first quarter. I remember talking with the guys in finance. And of course, it was very wrong. Totally wrong. I think it was 50% error. Then they said, we told you. So we made adjustments to it. The next quarter, 10% error. Then they keep quiet. The third quarter, margin of error between 3 to 5%. That's pretty accurate. For what we want to do is that what you want is that you want to know every single day, are you making money, are you losing money? And I need this report every single day in the afternoon. By 5:30, discipline means 5:30. It cannot be midnight. By 5:30, we will shoot emails to everybody in the region, say, what are you going to do about this? A flurry of emails take place in the evening. So this is good. We also have a cash report. As you said, cash is king. And we know every single day how much money we have in the till. And every bank account, we know. And so if the guy in Rome, our station manager in Rome, spend the money and we can tell that he didn't spend it, I will ask the question, what did you spend the money on yesterday? And if he said, I spent it on furniture, why? And it's important to do this because if you want to conserve cash, you need to know how much cash is being spent on a daily basis. So these are important. By the way, we track other things like OTP, standard stuff. You know, how many bags are lost. That's very important. We do that all the time too. But it is important to put in a discipline to manage cash and the P&L. So that is called discipline of action. In fact, if you look at our activities, some of our activities, if I brought a guy called Saleh, which were running a lot of laboratories to turn around routes. This guy has 110 activities that he's tracking every single day. And these are discipline, it's action. So the word is not about thinking what you want to do, it's a bias for action, and it must be discipline. If it's 5 o'clock, it's 5 o'clock. And not another day, not another tomorrow, but it's now. The idea of discipline and action is very, very important. And the fourth secret is situational leadership. This is not my idea, this is Blanchard. And I honestly believe it is a very, very useful tool, framework for leadership. And you know, if you read Blanchard's model of situational leadership, it tells you one thing. When you start a journey, be very directive in your style. Yeah, you can listen to people, but at the end of the day, you can't have too much democracy in a crisis. You cannot have 3 generals in a war, one only. And I always tell people about the story about Moses when he led his people towards the promised land. He told them, this is the direction we're heading in the desert. Do you think he knew? I'm sure he didn't know. because they got lost for 40 years in the desert. And the point was, you have to have some conviction in what you believe is the right way to go. And it's very important that you do this. And usually, the troops, when you come in the organization, it's called the phase 1 orientation phase. Everybody looks at the leader and says, well, great guy, nice fellow, very high morale. And when you do big changes come with tremendous amount of pain. Then you enter into phase 2 called dissatisfaction phase. Then oh shit. When I announce we're going to cut routes, then announce we're going to reduce manpower, then announce we're going to cut all the current contracts with the various vendors, we got to renegotiate them. This was difficult. This is the time everyone wanted to get me out from my job. The politicians were after me, et cetera, et cetera. It was very difficult. But I always know one thing. Every time you run into a turnaround, a big change process, never expect it to be a bed of roses. I have one motto for turnaround: no breakthrough without breakdown. So you go through this, and you need to break down the existing system. You cannot get a breakthrough until you break down the status quo. And breaking down the status quo will bring tremendous resistance. Everyone is unhappy. But this point, between stage 1 and stage 2, as the leader, you need to be highly directive. You will listen to people, but you have to tell them, I know you've told me, but we're heading in this direction. Now, at this point, we run all the labs, and people know what to do. They start making big changes and resolve the problem, resolution, and this is production phase. Then you have to change your style. You cannot be telling them what to do, because they already know how to do it. Then you start to empower. Then you start to give a lot of room for them to develop. This is the time when a lot of leaders grow in the organization. When you reach this phase, the leader actually becomes redundant. My job is to make myself redundant. From the day I joined Malaysia Airlines, in the first month, I already announced my successor. This is the guy that does everything with me, because my job is to make him take over. The story about Moses didn't lead his people to promised land. Joshua did. So the story here is that when you run an organization through a transformation process, be very clear in your mind how you're going to make yourself redundant. When we finished our turnaround, in the first 2 years, which we did turnaround, I said to my potential successor, I don't nominate my successor, I appoint him. I suggest he's the guy, the board will eventually. I did have a conversation with him. I make it rather public. Do you want to take over this job now? Are you ready for it? If you do, then I will quit. By the end of my 3-year contract, you take over the job, then I walk. And we had a very long conversation. Eventually, he said, look, Idris, the job isn't quite ended. We both concluded we need to move into a next step called transformation. And if we start doing that journey, he said, you better stay because you start a new journey. So when you start a new journey, you go back to the beginning. Turnaround, we finish. So in the turnaround, it's done. But if you start an entirely new journey in the same organization, you begin right here. So when we started that, we published a new document called the Business Transformation Plan. We call it BTP2. That's an entirely new journey. So I returned to the same modus operandi by being highly directive. And when people know how to do it, then we let go. And that's the same process. Let me talk about this secret that I've never learned when I was in Shell, winning coalition. This is a new part of my syllabus. This thing called government-linked company in Malaysia, there are many utility companies like our telecoms is owned by the government, government-linked. One of the things I realized is when you run Malaysia Airlines, the government owns 69% stake in this company. If you don't find a way to win coalition with them, you have a real problem. The problem is, who is the government? So I interact with at least 3 ministries in my job. The first one is the Ministry of Transport. They want us to fly to every location, seamless, everywhere. That's their job. And the Ministry of Tourism, every point in the world to bring as many tourists. Doesn't care whether we make money. They'd like to lower our fare so that all our fares is probably 0. and bring as many tourists into the country, and then everybody is happy. But, you know, we lose money. If I talk to the Ministry of Finance, oh, you cannot make losses. You must make money. So now I talk to 3 ministers. They all have different ideas. Frankly speaking, if I'm the Minister of Tourism, I will talk like that fellow too. Because you want to bring many tourists into the country. But, you know, when you sit there as a CEO, you're going to deal with all these conflicting interests. What I found all the time was, to deal with this, I always use one against the other. Because he said, this is the guy's view about this. And eventually, it can find a way to get them together in one room. Then they talk civilly about it. Then you don't get yourself caught in the middle. It is important to learn how to do this. Dealing with the government is important. Investors is crucial too. The amount of time I go on the road shows in many places to talk about what we try to do, it's just incredible, very tiring, but it's important because if people don't have confidence in what we do, they don't put money, they don't invest money. Staff is an important one. We have nearly about 40 unions in the company, 40. And of course, every country, there is an affiliation to a union in a particular country. And there are, some of them have very different views about what we should do with this company. And spending a lot of time telling them the facts is important. And I've said this, one thing I know is that if you want to engage with the union, you must be forthright about the financial situation. We open the books to them, they take a look at it, and I invite them, if they don't believe our auditors, to bring their own auditors to check the books, that we only have 3.5 months of cash, that we had to do the draconian measures, otherwise this company doesn't exist. When I first told them that that was the case in the town hall, that we had 3.5 months of cash, we even showed the New Straits Times, the 2 newspapers, what was going to be the headline in April 2006. And we put it down there and said, all Malaysia Airlines employees, no salary for the month. And another one, all Malaysia Airlines aircraft grounded. We said, this is going to happen. It's in 3.5 months. And we got to do what we had to do now. When we had to sell our building, a lot of people gave resistance to it because this building is iconic. It's in the heart of the city. We had to sell it, including the previous CEO of Malaysia Airlines. He came out in the media and argued, why are these guys wanting to sell this? My argument was, we sold it for 130 million ringgit. It gave us cash to survive for 20 days. We needed it because if we didn't sell the building, where are we going to get the money to run the business? We were not going to go and get it from the government. So we had to sell our assets to do this. I guess when I was reading in the newspaper what they're trying to do in Citigroup, they have to sell their investment arm in order to get money to rescue the rest of the business. It sounds quite similar. But it's important to engage them. And I found engaging with the politician is a very, very complex activity. And I tell you, it was the most unnerving part of my job coming into this. And whatever I did in the beginning, I didn't seem to do them right because they always have some complaints about us in Parliament. And it took me maybe a good 1 year to discover how to do it. And the trick was very simple. I found out the ministers and also the parliamentarians had questions to raise to us. When we started to interrogate it more, it was the backbenchers that needed to be convinced. Because they raised the question to the parliamentarian gave us a hard time. And from big question to small questions. And so what we do now, every quarter I have a huge meeting like this. I invite them for dinner. All of the backbenchers, the politicians, they all sit together. We give them the best food that we can think of. I also invite some of the most good-looking and gorgeous cabin crew to serve them, so they feel very good about that too. And we come out there after we finish eating, and then I make my presentation. When I finish the presentation, I get my entire team to line up a firing squad. Any questions they put, we engage. And I found they are very reasonable people, if you put the facts on the table. We've been doing this every quarter. And it's fantastic because we didn't understand them before. When we started to engage with them, I realized there was one clear, insightful learning for me. What they consider as important, very important agenda to them, is actually a very small point to us in the airlines. What we consider as very important may not be important to them, very small. Then I realized one thing. You can concede small things. You can protect big things because you can always find the trade-off. And so this idea of doing the trade-off is very important. And we learn this when you start to talk about issues with them. Frankly speaking, I'll tell you one mistake I made because I didn't read the tea leaves. We were going to save 1 million ringgit a year if we close our lounge in Singapore, and I will be quite public about this. It doesn't matter. And so we closed the lounge, and then we thought, we will use the common lounge. Then all hell broke loose. Everybody in the government was not happy with this decision. And so effectively, you can close any lounge in the world, but not the one in Singapore. Because there's a love-hate relationship between the two countries. But you must have it there. And so it's 1 million ringgit of savings. So that's important. There are other big things that we had to do. Cutting our flight from Kuala Lumpur to Manchester, we were losing about 50 million ringgit flying that. They have no problem. Said, go ahead and close it, no problem. So between saving 1 million ringgit and 40 million ringgit, I take the 40. Anytime, any day. So this is what I mean by knowing what's important to them and what's important to us. You will always find a sweet spot. But you cannot do it until you engage. And you've got to be quite open about it and very, very frontal. And the discussions are very, very frank. And usually we finish those sessions until midnight. The conversations go on to well into midnight because the range of questions they throw are various. Let me talk about this one that nobody taught in business school, divine intervention. I believe there are two experiential truths in life. The first one is that human beings have limited control and influence over what happens to them. This weekend, when you have the time, take a piece of paper, write down on that piece of paper all the major things that happen in your life. All those things that happen on that sheet of paper, if they happen because you plan and design them to happen that way, put a tick against them. All those things that happen that way that you had no control over, put a cross and count them. On my sheet, more than 60% of what happened to me, I didn't plan them that way. They happened because they happened. So we only control, in my experience, only 40%. We cannot control oil price. You can see the problem. We don't control the recession. It hits the business. Massive things. You don't control SARS. These are massive things that happen in our business, in our lives, that we don't have control over. We need to recognize it, first point. The second point is, and not many people kind of agree with this, life is a continuous reduction of options. When we all born as youngsters, we go to school, then people ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? Say one day you say you want to be a lawyer, another day you can be a doctor, you can be anything. And as you grow, then you get to science stream, not the art stream. Suddenly the options reduce. Because if you're in the art stream, say, very difficult to be a doctor later on. And gradually you get a job as an engineer. Very difficult to suddenly from engineer to be a doctor, whatever. So the options reduce. When you get married, also reduce, the option. When you have children, also reduce. When I went to work and live for Shell in the UK, we got 2 kids, my wife and I, and we have to look for a house. We had to look for houses close to the schools, reduce options. In life, options become reduced and reduced. You end up actually with very limited scope for moving because you're just there. So I've always believed in life, first of all, you got caught with this thing that 60% outside your control, and suddenly you found yourself with a very limited area to influence. These are universal truths, in my opinion. So what goes on your mind is the following. You need to understand that you are vulnerable. Vulnerability is a virtue, and it's a very important aspect of leadership. You must be humble to accept the world is not at your feet. If it doesn't work in your favor, regardless of all the things you do, secret 1, secret 2, secret 3, and 4, and 5, everything you've done your very best, you can still fail. It's okay. The reason why that's important is this, because it's liberating to know that we are fallible, we are vulnerable. The aspect of humility is important. And I believe you need to ask the question, who is in charge of those things you cannot control? Some people say it's fate. In the Eastern world, people say it's feng shui. And some people say it's God. Whatever you believe in, better go and do it. If you believe in God, you better pray hard. If you believe in feng shui, go and see a feng shui master. Now, I believe, what can you do? I believe there are 3 things that you do that somehow, I think if you do them, the luck, the forces is going to work in your favor. I really like the book by Paulo Coelho. He wrote the book in The Alchemist. If you want something desperately, the whole universe will conspire to make it happen. How do you cause the universe to conspire to make it happen for you? And I believe in 3 things. The first one, how do you get divine intervention to work in your favor? Number 1, on values and action, be a good human being. Practice what I call random act of gratitude. Just do it at random. One day you walk around in a shopping mall and you find somebody really struggling with something, carrying heavy bags. Go there and assist the person. And you will see how much they actually appreciate if you do it. But you don't do things that will burden yourself. But there are many small things that you can do at random to do and demonstrate this. And there are many things we can do as good human beings. I mean, the list is many, many. There are many good things you can do. I think it's important for us to do good things. And I also believe in business, on ethics. Always operate from the white. I believe there are 3 circles. White is when you follow business principles. Black is when you're corrupt. You're doing evil stuff. The one in the middle is the gray. Unfortunately, many things are in the gray. So when you do the things in the gray, you step inside them, do not stay there. You must return always to the white, because if you step down to do the things in the gray, after a long time when you stay there, your conscience gets modified. Then after a long time, then you consider everything in gray to look white. The next progression is to move into what was originally black, because you see that as gray. I have seen in my career, in my time, I met many business people who have no difficulty offering you a bribe, because to them, it's white. Their conscience has been modified over time to believe that bribing someone is a very normal thing to do. And so I always believe that if you do things that are gray, how do you deal with it to return to the white? Document the actions, why you have to do certain things, and make sure all the facts are there, and you say you have no choice, that the options available are only 1 and 2 in dealing with this. When you have done a clear audit trail on it, you know that you don't worry about it, because that you actually return this gray stuff. You put it into the white area, and it gets scrutinized on the basis of the facts that are available. And then that's how you solve it. That's why I always tell people, on ethical stuff, you must always stand in the white, never stand in the black, enter into the gray, but when you solve them, bring them into the white, and document it and produce an audit trail. One of the first things I did when I joined Malaysia Airlines was to introduce a whistleblower policy. In a whistleblower policy, you can blow anybody, and we have a team, and I chair the team, that we looked at all of those whistleblower cases. We have one individual whose entire staff, 102 of them, whistleblew him. And when we investigated it, we fired him. So the point around this is that it is important to demonstrate clearly into the organization that you mean business when you say you have to get the organization to operate in the white zone. And the third aspect is this thing called self-renewal. You know, we're all very busy. IATA folks, I know you're very busy. You're dealing with a lot of risks, including the bank's risk too, et cetera, and our money in the airlines. So we're all very busy doing things. We are very busy in Malaysia Airlines. What we seldom do, though, seldom sit quietly in solitude. And I urge everybody, do it for yourself. Sit quietly in solitude, not in loneliness. Loneliness that means to be alone and not wanting to be alone. Solitude is you are now volunteering to be alone. And when you're alone, you're in deep reflections. When you are going through this deep reflection, I do believe it's important to define for yourself what's called the theory of enough. What is actually what you really need in your life? And if you really ask yourself, there are very things that you have in your life. And for me, what I've defined for me, my theory of enough, I need a car, I need a house, I love blues music, so I need enough money to buy all the blues CDs that come out. They don't come every day. Once a week there's one, so I can buy that. And every day, if I want to eat an ice cream, I can, because I love ice cream. And I need to have insurance policy for my kids. And I have enough money to pay for my food, et cetera, et cetera. There aren't many things, actually. The reason why it's important to do this, once you've defined this, everything on top of that is blessing. See, the problem, the trap that most of us have, human paradigm is, we don't do it and we don't count our blessings. We then are very unhappy about what we have, because we then worry why the neighbor has a bigger house. We worry about today's life is no good, but I want to live for tomorrow. I think we must live for today. What we have today is fantastic. You walk down there, and I walk down there today, I really think this is a fantastic place. You even have palm trees here. Beautiful. And so there are very few things that are important. Unfortunately, most of us are forced to enter into solitude when somebody we love dies. Every time I go to a graveyard, that's when I'm struck with what is important, actually. Very few things are really important. The importance of this solitude is it causes us to think about what's important and not really important. And also that we begin to count our blessings. We're not disgruntled. And if you can do that, what happens to you inwardly as a person? You radiate with hope. Happiness is from within. Happiness is not an external stimuli. And if you radiate, people will gather around you. Because when you radiate happiness, you are happy, people come to you. Nobody comes to anybody that looks sad. Hope is a tenet of leadership. I always believe if you don't have hope, then you become hopeless. If the leader has confidence and has hope and is happy about what he lives today, then I think it radiates and he gathers more people. And my reason why I say this, I think if you're basically a good human being, you operate on good business principles and ethics. Thirdly, you constantly go for renewal. Somehow or other, I believe that luck is going to fall in your favor, one way or another. And if you are a spiritual person, you better pray. Very important this. And prayer is solitude. And I really believe that in life, you got to worry about the 60% you don't control. Because today we are busy with the 40%. We don't even think of what we're going to do with the 60%. And that's what I do. And I believe it's a perhaps useful thing. That's why I said, if you get offended with the idea, please throw it out. But that's just my idea of what to do with this 60%. Some other people may have totally different ideas, but that's my idea. You go and see a feng shui master, he will ask you to rearrange the chairs in your office. Okay. Now, so that, I think, is the story around the principle. To recap, if you deal with a crisis, this is what we do in Malaysia Airlines. Today, the crisis has begun, deepening into the organization. We are setting to ourselves impossible targets, totally impossible targets. And if I declare to you now, you wouldn't believe it. We are declaring a target 3 times that we have ever made, our highest profit in our corporate history, in a recession this year. And everybody said, it cannot be done. Beautiful. And they said, surely you cannot do it. That's good. Because they say it cannot be done. And if we fail, it's okay. The entire board says it's okay to fail. And so that is our target. We are targeting 2.3 billion ringgit on net income this year in a recession. And we see the numbers going down. But what we do is our guys look for big steps. Even if we come to half of that, that's beautiful. So the reason why we put big targets and big steps is to cause tremendous groundswell of challenge within the organization to do big things. And they are anchored on the P&L. Always return to the P&L. And we identify who is going to do that. We meet in a room. Every month we sit there and look at every activity. I can tell you, we have one particular subject called MH, Malaysian Hospitality. We have 688 initiatives that underpin that. And we monitor it every month in my office. Painful as they are, that's what we do. Winning coalition, discipline of action. We run courses on the 6 modules, and my team, every member on the team run this. Module 1 is Game the Impossible, Module 2 anchoring on P&L, 3-day session, including divine intervention. There's a whole module on that. Actually, I'm the one who teaches that one. And we run this into the whole company because my belief is that we want to grow as many leaders in this organization. It will take us to the next level. But I sit down and say, all we need to do is to try our best. If it doesn't work, it's okay. Smile and be happy. So our guys, we need to be happy with what we're doing. And we don't worry about failure. And I believe one thing. If you play it safe, you have decided not to grow. And I've told everybody in the troops, actually, after all said and done, it's not about the money that we make. And I want to quote and close with John Ruskin. He says, the best reward for a man's toil is not what he gets from it, but what he becomes of it. So this whole process of transformation and turnaround is what you become of the journey. That's the most rewarding aspect. Not so much the P&L, although I drum it just now, but it is the growth of the people and what they become. And I do believe a lot of people in Malaysia Airlines have actually been transformed in the process of what we're doing. Thank you.